Welcome to my channel. This is Dawn with Pink Chair Gaming, and this is day one of my 30-day challenge to create a festive island in 30 IRL days using no Nintendo Online. Alright, and here are the specifics of the challenge. We are going to complete the challenge in 30 IRL days. Time traveling is allowed. No Nintendo Online, no treasure islands, and I don't know if I'll have time for it, but HHP is allowed. And 3 goals that I have set for myself are to have at least 2 festive builds, have a 5-star rating, and have 3 villagers that fit the island theme. So without further ado, I'm going to go through all of the intro screens and I will meet you at the maps. Okay, this is the toughest part of this challenge for me. I am going to be picky about the placement of the airport to resident services. I have an entrance in mind, and for it to work, I want there to be around 10 spaces between resident services and the airport, and I want the airport lined up with resident services. And in my experience, the airport is usually off by 1 space from being centered. I don't even care about anything else with the maps, you know, like the river mouths, anything like that. I don't care about the airport color. I don't even care about the starting villagers. I really want the airport to be lined up with resident services and be really close. So, I'm not going to bore you with all of the restarts. I can tell you that I am recording this early in the morning on a weekend, so I have all day to do this first day of the challenge. And I'm going to give myself about 4 IRL hours to look for this map. And if I don't find what I'm looking for, then I'm just going to have to find a way to settle. But for now, none of these maps are what I'm looking for, so let the games begin. I'll be back once I've found the map I'm going to use. Alright, I cannot tell you how lucky I got with my map choices. This restart right here was like the one immediately after my first choices. Alright, and I'm looking at the bottom right and I'm like, okay, is that really centered? It looks centered to me. So let's just click on it and see what happens. Okay, here's our first flyover. We have peaches. I don't even care about the fruit. I'm good with peaches. As we get closer, I'm looking. I'm like, is it centered? Is it centered? I can't tell from here. I do have a blue airport. I love blue airports. It's my favorite color. So I'm definitely not going to argue with that. Really don't care what color it is. But here's where I'm like, okay, can we get through this? I want to see if this is really centered or not. And I couldn't remember who he was, but that is Tad. I didn't mean to talk to him twice, but I did. And then there is Renee, which I think I had her on my very first island. But I'm going to walk up and down through here like 2 or 3 times. It's like, oh my gosh, I think it's really centered. So I'm going to use the weeds over here to measure, because resident services is 12 spaces across. So I'm like counting 6 of them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the 6th one lines up with the left over here. And I bet I go through it 2 or 3 times to actually like make sure that it is 6 spaces over. 5, 6, and then I'm going to walk down to the middle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually centered. Cannot believe it is. So we are going to take this island. Let me get my tent, and I'll meet you where I'm going to put it. Alright, I know it's going to cost money later to move it, but I decided to put my tent on the beach just so it's out of the way when I actually start designing the island. And then I can decide later where I really want it to go and move it. Alright, and in keeping tradition, like with my tent, I'm going to put both Renee's and Tad's down on the beach. Now I'm going to go gather materials, and I'll meet you at the party. Okay, we have everything we need for our celebration. Now it's time to name my island. I went through a couple of different ideas before settling on one, and I think the hardest part was deciding how I wanted to spell it. And once you see what I've called it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So here we go. Here is the name of my island. I decided to call it Saint Nick. And the reason I had trouble with the spelling was I couldn't decide whether to abbreviate Saint or not. And in the end, decided to go ahead and spell it all out. Alright, so for now, let me go to bed and I will see you the next day. Alright, we are officially on the next day. I have my Nook phone, I have all of my apps, and I just received my bill. Alright, so let's go ahead and start grinding to get my moving fees paid off. So while collecting resources for my DIY workshop, I made the rookie mistake of shaking a non-fruit tree. I really tried my best to make it to resident services, and I was that close. So, hey, at least I think I get Nook miles for getting stung. Alright, I now have all of the tools necessary to catch bugs and fish, and I've donated the required 5 critters to Tom Nook, so now we can get the museum. Alright, and I looked around at lots of different places on the island. I'm just not sure where I want the museum to go in the end, so for now, it's going to go on the beach with everything else. After lots and lots of grinding, I have finally earned enough Nook miles to go pay off my moving fees. So we're going to go do that right now. Alright, here we go. It is time to pay off my moving fees. It probably took me about 2 hours of playing the game to get enough miles to do that. And that's actually not too shabby. So now I can go through all the dialogue and update my tent to a house. And in keeping with the festive feel for my island, I decided to go with a red roof. Now that I've paid off my moving fees, I need to decide which Nook Mile items are most important, and I'm definitely going to start with getting enough miles for the tool ring. And now that I have a house, I have unlocked the Nook Miles Plus goals, so I'm definitely going to try to take advantage of these every day. I want to try to make sure, because I have the goal for finding a couple of villagers that fit my island theme, I'm going to need Nook Mile tickets. And I really want to try to take advantage of this during the first 3 plots that you get, because those I feel like could be the easiest ones to find the villagers I'm looking for. Alright, I have completed all of my 2x goals for today, and I want to grind as much possible as I can out of this first IRL day, so we're going to time travel to the next day. We have our very first morning announcements, in which we find out that the airport is open for business. This means I can go ahead and start villager hunting. And we also find out that the museum is officially opened, which means it's now time to start catching more fish and bugs, so we can go ahead and get it upgraded. I officially have a house now, which means I have storage, which will be great now that we need to really start collecting resources and making items. One of the first things I want to do is talk to Blathers, because he will give me the DIY for the flimsy shovel and the vaulting pole, which will allow me to get to more places on the island and start getting fossils. Alright, when I went into resident services, Timmy is asking me to help build the shop. I've been collecting lots of resources, and I'm prepared to go ahead and give him all of the wood that is needed. So now all that is left is the iron nuggets, and I plan on going to a Nook Mile Island to get the rest of what I need. Okay, here we are. Hopefully I should be able to get the last of the iron nuggets that I need. But while we're here, we're going to see who the villager is. And it is Vesta, who unfortunately just does not really fit as a festive villager. So I'm going to collect the resources I need and then head back to my island. Now that I finally have all of the iron nuggets needed to open the shop, it's time to give them to Timmy and get the shop so we can place it on the island. Alright, I haven't really put too much thought into where I want my shop to go, but usually it is somewhere close to resident services. And as I'm thinking through some ideas I have for behind resident services, I want to make sure there's enough room for a path between it and the shop. And since I don't have any pathing yet, I'm going to dig holes in the ground to help me get the placement exactly where I want it. Alright, and after a little bit of finagling, I think I have finally found a spot where my shop can go. Okay, I've been collecting Nook Miles and saved up enough for 3 tickets, so let's do a quick villager hunt and see if we can find a festive villager for our island. Okay, our first island gives us Chester, who unfortunately is just not quite festive enough for my island. The upside is that it's also a sister fruit island, so at least I'll be able to gather a bunch of fruit and make a little bit of money. Alright, our second ticket gives us Ava, who is also not quite festive enough for my island. So we got one more ticket. Let's see if we can get lucky. Alright, I took a little bit of a break, so it's actually a couple hours later in the game. But we're back for our last ticket, and let's see who we get. And I can see it's Bo, and I am so happy to find him. I will definitely be inviting him to the island. He is absolutely perfect. He was on my wish list. So at least in all of these hunts, I have found one villager that fits one of my goals. I needed 15 more specimens to give to Blather so he can upgrade the museum, and I was finally able to get the last one. That means for this day, I've been able to get the shop placed and the museum upgraded. So we're going to go ahead and time travel to the next day. And here we are during the announcements. Tom is letting us know that the museum will be closed for the day for construction, and the shop is finally open. Of course, the very first time you enter the shop, we get to meet Mabel, and I will definitely be unlocking that because since I'm not going to be doing custom designs, I want to make sure that I get the patterns that she offers from her shop. Okay, and when I first enter resident services for the day, of course, Tom is on the phone with potential buyers. So it is now time to do the 3 plots, but I'm not going to do them right away. I'm actually going to try to grind out some more Nook Miles and hopefully do at least another ticket or 2 and see if I can maybe find a couple more villagers to fill in those houses before we set them up. I was able to get enough Nook Miles to get at least 1 ticket to do a hunt, and I found Meringue. And I went back and forth and really debated on whether she was appropriate for the island. I mean, she kind of looks like a Christmas cake type of thing. But I decided to not take her because I have some other villagers in mind that I think would be better, and I hope I don't regret it. Okay, it's about an hour later in the game, and I was able to grind a few more Nook Miles to get another ticket, and we get Candy. And any other time, I would be ecstatic to get Candy. She's a really good villager, but she is definitely not a festive villager. So maybe I'll be able to get enough Nook Miles to at least get one more ticket and try again. We'll just have to wait and see. I was really desperate to try and find at least one more villager that would fit my island. So I ground through, but alas, it was Marcy. And she's really cute, and I'm not even a kangaroo villager type of person. But unfortunately, she is not festive, and I think I have about done as much as I can with Nook Mile tickets. So I think it's time to just bow down and autofill my houses and go ahead and build my plots. I forgot that before you place your plots of land, you have to put down your first bridge. And I'm going to take the opportunity to place it and then time travel to the next day and maybe get enough more Nook Miles to get one more villager hunt in before I actually place my plots of land. And here we are at the next day, and the big news for today is that the museum is fully upgraded. But to be honest, I don't know that I'm really going to donate anything to it. Because this is a 30-day challenge, I'm more worried about making money than donating items. I was able to get enough Nook Miles to at least get one ticket for today, and lo and behold, we find Patty. And I love Patty. I've had her on my island before, but she is definitely not a festive villager. And at this point, I have been playing my game for probably about 6 or 7 hours, and I think I've had enough. So it's time to just put down my plots of land and let them autofill. Usually, when I build my first plots, I put them really close to the front of the island and group all of them together. Then, as I build on the island, I'll move them as needed. I decided with this island to put my first 3 plots further back on the island in hopes that I can come up with a plan to build around them and not have to move them again. And with that, we are going to call it a day for day 1 of my challenge. I wanted to try and get as far as I could, and I think I ended up playing a total of almost 8 hours this first day. We are going to wait until tomorrow to see who autofills, so please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!